Hey everybody, it's Tony Codispoti from GreatVocalMajority.com and Great Vocal Majority on a YouTube channel. And I want to talk a little bit more about the election from a different perspective. This election just keeps reverberating, right? I mean, it's like the aftershock of a major earthquake. It really is. But I wrote something and I want to read it because I've been at this for a long time. And I just want to make my comments, and you can tell me what you think. For years, I argued with liberals that Barack Obama's policies were ruining the Democratic brand because they were too extreme. He satisfied many people on the far left of the Democratic Party, but the rank and file of the Democratic Party, I don't think was really with him. And all I got for saying that were accusations of me being racist or whatever. And I tried to explain as well how the Tea Party was really a reaction, not to Obama so much, but a reaction to the big government policies at the very end of the Bush era, upon which Obama expanded dramatically. Because if you remember, at the end of the Bush era, you had the bank bailout. They wrote a blank check to the Treasury Secretary for $750 billion. And there was a bunch of things like that. And Obama just parlayed that. And that really got people nervous. And, that went on for about a year. And in January of 2010, I wrote a Facebook post. And in that post, I told liberals and Democrats that they were going to experience a mammoth loss in the midterm elections. And for that, I was laughed at, ridiculed. I was just dismissed. People were just like literally laughing at me through their Facebook posts. It was, they didn't think that I was right. But, I could see the direction. It was just so obvious to me. And I even did a spreadsheet. I had actually at one point estimated about 100 seats would go to the Republicans. It turned out that if you add the Senate and the House, I think it was 70 seats. So I was close. So, but the Republicans also won seats all up and down the ballot. They won at the local level and they won pretty much everywhere in 2010. So the 2010 midterms were an enormous victory for Republicans, but the Republicans really didn't earn it. It's just people were really annoyed with the policies of the federal government and Obama, which all the Democrats were signing on to. Because if you remember, everything that Obama did, all the Republicans opposed, and only got Democrat votes. I think even the big spending bill, the stimulus package, I think got one Republican vote, and that guy was voted out in 2010. So the 2010 midterms were an enormous victory for Republicans, but by default. It was the biggest victory for them in 80 years. But still, liberals found excuses. They would say, oh, it's low turnout. Oh, it's gerrymandering. And, in all honesty, low turnout in a midterm election for Democrats is absolutely true. And gerrymandering does contribute to help the party that gerrymandered the district. This is true, but these aren't even primary, secondary, or even tertiary reasons for why the Republicans did so well. The Republicans did well because average people felt ignored and betrayed by Democrats. That's how the Republicans did so well. And that was the primary factor. And the Tea Party was really a manifestation of people who had those feelings. But the left dismissed it. The left kept dismissing it. They thought, they wanted people to believe something different. They wanted to believe that it was all, the Tea Party was just an artifice that was created by diabolical conservative billionaires that nobody ever heard of. In all honesty, when did you ever hear of the Koch brothers before they started telling you that the name Koch brothers. I mean, and I believe that the reason why you started hearing about the Koch brothers is because some conservative talk show hosts like Glenn Beck were all over George Soros, and I think George Soros was behind floating the names about the Koch brothers, who, as far as I know, I don't think they've been found criminally guilty of anything, unlike George Soros. Anyway, that aside, all along, the American public in poll after poll said they were deeply dissatisfied with the direction of the country. Republicans, in their utterly tone-deaf stupidity, in 2012 chose to nominate the one candidate who couldn't attack Obama where he was weakest, which was Obamacare. Still, Romney had a very good chance, and were it not for this brilliantly devised, and I really mean that, it was brilliantly devised, campaign strategy by David Axelrod, Obama would have lost. Now, what David Axelrod did, you may wonder why Barack Obama was constantly going on these very, the late night talk shows and a lot of light interview shows. He was going on there because his research, David Axelrod found, and this was very smart research, found that there were a lot of Democrats who watched those shows, but they weren't regular voters. They were registered Democrats, but they didn't vote often. So if they could endear Obama to that audience, and then contact them when it came close to election time, that could turn the election for Obama. And in fact, what they did, they were able on election day in 4 states to win by less than 100, not less than, but about 100,000 votes in each of these 4 key states. And had it not been for that, we'd be talking about President Romney right now. And that's really the truth. So in terms of what I'm talking about here, about the decline of the Democratic Party, what I don't want you to lose sight of, though, is that in 2012, despite the higher turnout, and despite Obama winning, he had no coattails. I think they won back 5 seats after losing 70. They won back 5. That's nothing. So Obama didn't have any coattails. And that is really important, because it means that the election was more about Obama's personality than it was about his policy. People liked him. And I think that's true even today. And I think it's even fooled Obama, to be honest with you. And then we went on to the 2014 midterm elections, which was essentially a reprise of the 2010 blowout. Now, Republicans had, after the 2014, the Republicans had control of 31 governorships, 69 of 99 state legislative chambers. So the country was, at the state and local level, at the state level, was 70% Republican. And they had 31 governorships, which translates into 62% of the country. So Republicans were on the march all over America. And at lower levels, like mayors and dog catchers and local judges and stuff like that, the Democrats that were swept from office numbered over 1,000. I mean, that's a whole generation of Democrat office holders. Okay, still, you talk to liberals about this, and they were condescending, they were sneering, they gleefully pointed to what they believed was an impending doom for the GOP. Based on what? Based on guys arguing in Washington? That's it? And it was true that Republican voters were angry at their congressional leadership for not being brave enough to fight Obama and the Democrats and the mainstream media. But doing what they did only created an environment where an outsider had a real chance, because people were sick of the Washington politicians. They were sick of Boehner and McConnell and now Paul Ryan. They were sick of them because they they had no guts to fight, because in a lot of the cases, the fight would have ended in a loss. So they were afraid to actually do that, to actually have a loss. So, that you just have to kind of look at this as I progress through this story. The Democrat leadership, though, was completely tone deaf to their voters too. I mean, you had Bernie Sanders, and they were rigging the system against him. The insiders rigged the primaries in favor of Hillary Clinton, who was never expected to earn the loyalty of the voters in the primary season the way Obama did in 2008. She was the candidate of entitlement. She was owed. And she already earned it. And the Democrat rank and file went along with that. But a lot of them didn't. A lot of them said, the hell with this. A lot of them said, I'm not going to vote for her. They were Bernie people, and they felt Bernie was skunked, and he was. Now, would Bernie, on a fair and square basis, would he have won anyway? Probably not. But it wasn't fair and square. That's the problem. And when you know it's not fair and square, and it's rigged for the woman who's like one guy said, dry humping corporations and banks, why would you vote for that person? Why would you come out if you were a Bernie supporter? You probably wouldn't. You might vote for Jill Stein, or you might not vote at all. And that's one of the big reasons why Hillary lost, because she just thought it was owed her, and that everybody would turn out for her the way they turned out for Obama. So they tried to exploit their voters, the Democrats, and they didn't believe for a minute, no matter who the Republicans nominated, that they were going to lose. And they especially didn't think they were going to lose to some eccentric, bombastic billionaire with a weird hairdo. I mean, they definitely didn't think that. I mean, that was the biggest joke. They looked at Donald Trump, and how many times did they say Donald Trump was a joke? How many times did Republicans say Donald Trump was a joke? I mean, I wasn't an original supporter of Trump. I really wasn't, not because of that, but because I just felt that at the time that he just wasn't the best choice. And but for the Democrats, they had this air of superiority, the supercilious attitudes that were on display throughout all of the media, their condescension, their dismissive attitude and comments about the Republican candidate. It forced people that were hungry for change to bite their tongues until they're in a voting booth. I mean, because if you were someone leaning toward Trump at that time, after all the way they made fun of him, and they laughed at him, and they ridiculed him, and they just said, "Oh, come on!" They just you bring up Trump, they go, "Oh, come on!" That's the kind of reaction you got. Why would you ever bring it up if you liked them? And this reminded me so much of the 1980 campaign, where they did much of the same thing to Ronald Reagan. I mean, in 1980, it was all about bedtime for Bonzo and how Reagan's not a serious guy, he's not a deep thinker. He's, Donald Trump, Ronald Reagan. Let's start with Ronald. Ronald Reagan was a governor for something like 8 years in California, and he was the head of a union. I mean, the guy was not a dope. And Donald Trump is a billionaire. He didn't start out as a billionaire. He became a billionaire. The guy is very accomplished. And, having worked around business executives myself, I could tell you, don't underestimate these guys. They know how to make decisions. They're very rational people. They're not, screwballs. Trump may come off like that, but I guarantee you, when it comes to business decisions, the guy is very rational. And the thing that just makes you wonder is, how could they not see this coming? How could the Democrats not see this coming? How could the liberals not see this coming? How could they not see the trajectory of the Democratic Party for the last 6 years? I mean, it wasn't like I wasn't telling them about it. I don't think it's any more complicated than this, really. And it's this. When you're self-righteous, you don't think you have to have any introspection. There's no need for self-examination. You're right. You're right. They're wrong. End. End of story. And I don't think that's changed. I really don't. And I'm here to tell you that if you believe that this election has changed them in any way, you're going to be very disappointed. Because, my friends, no matter how often, no matter how dramatic, no matter how epic or profound the left is proven to be wrong and repudiated, the true leftists is never going to change. They're going to hold true to their guns. Look, for the last 100 years, socialism has been killing people. The bodies would pile up as high as Mount Everest. Over 100 million people have been killed by the political left in the world in the last 99 years. I mean, that's people, those are people, that's an extreme version of the left, of course, not necessarily the left in America. But the point I'm making is that these are people that never can admit when they're wrong. They never can admit it. I mean, they don't question their assumptions, ever. Ever! That's not good. The Republicans, I think, the Republican voter, and this is what the Tea Party is all about, have questioned their assumptions, have looked at themselves and said, we want this. That has changed. That's what the Democrat Party has to do now. But they're not going to do it. They're not, because they're run by lunatics. Now they want Howard Dean to be the head of the DNC. And if it's not him, it's going to be Keith Ellison. Keith Ellison? Why don't you just make it Louis Farrakhan and call it a day? Look, this is why the Democrats are in a free fall right now. And if they go in that direction, they go in the Howard Dean direction, or if they go in the Keith Ellison direction, it's not going to get better for them. They are going to be marginalized down to a nothing. And maybe that's really what needs to happen. But I'm not arguing here for a single party country. Absolutely not. We need a vibrant party, whether it's called the Democratic Party or if it's called something else. But it's got to be something that stands for the Constitution and not trying to rewrite the damn thing. There are policy differences that can be done. One doesn't have to be, Democrat and Democrat light or Republican and Republican light. There can be opposing points of view, but they don't have to be so dramatic like the Democrats are right now, where they really don't believe in the Constitution. They really don't. And that's a problem. And that's why they're losing. And that's why they'll continue to lose. So that's what I wanted to say. And I hope I didn't go too long here, but it looks like I did. So anyhow, thanks for watching, and leave some comments.